Matthew, welcome to the podcast where we talk about unlocking growth. How's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
This will be an unusual one. So, for the audience who are listening in, this will be one where roll up your sleeves. We're going to get in there. We're going to talk about how the right targets are going to transform your marketing strategy. So, if you don't want to hear about MQLs and SQLs, maybe this isn't the episode for you because Matthew is going to take us down a rabbit hole of the importance of setting goals. So, Matthew, but before we do, actually, you were just sharing with me a little bit about your background and I hear folks like marketing intern, got into marketing, worked my way up. I think it'd be great for the audience to just hear a little bit of your unusual journey before we dive in.
Absolutely. I started in college as a music major, so I am a classically trained bassoonist. You can Google that, it's an unusual instrument. And then partway through college, I started cooking to pay for school and realized I had better career options as a chef than I did as a bassoonist. So I started doing that full time. I worked in the restaurant industry for 7 years, worked my way up to the top French place in Boston, where I burned out and
Mm.
got out of the restaurant industry entirely and into tech. I did frontline tech support for an investments company for a number of years, and then was lucky enough to get over to HubSpot. I joined them in 2010, running their support team, learning about all things digital marketing. And 3 years later, after I left HubSpot, I've gone on to a bunch of different startups, sometimes running customer teams, sometimes running marketing teams. And now I'm the head of marketing at SpotDraft.
Such a cool and unusual background. By the way, many folks who don't know much about hospitality, they don't know how intense that environment could be and how stressful. We complain maybe other areas are, too stressful, but hey, it's a very unique world. Well, Matthew, we're going to dive right in because what we're going to talk about today is in the world of B2B, like who isn't discussing MQLs and SQLs? Who isn't debating, should it be one leader? Should it be two leaders? Should there be focus on MQL or SQL? And uh, where you focus matters a ton. So why don't we start with why are you changing your goals? What from and what to? And we'll make our way into what impact do you think it will have or already having as you begin this transition?
Absolutely. So when I started at SpotDraft, they'd been out of a marketing leader for several months while they were looking for a replacement. And when I got in there were a couple things that I needed to get in order very quickly. And the main thing that they were focused on were MQLs. Makes a ton of sense. You're driving demand, and you need to get those folks in and make sure that you're booking demos. And they didn't even have a concept of like a content lead. It was just traffic straight to MQLs, those go straight to sales. And so I stuck with that for a while I worked with the team with smaller goals week by week to improve our velocity and how fast we were moving. And then after 6 months of finally getting the team operating really well, really efficiently, really focused, we were crushing our MQL goals. And then I decided that, well, really, in order to make sure that we're serving the business and not just serving our own teams, we need to go one step further down the sales process. So I had us change our team's target from MQLs to SQLs. Now, the way that we define those, because definitions matter, an MQL for us is someone who fills out the demo request form and picks a date and time on the calendar. So that means they've committed. That's a high intent signal. They're doing great. In order for them to SQL, it means they have to talk with a salesperson and get qualified to buy. And that was a big change to make sure that we were not just trying to have short-term success, not just to show, what we can do with marketing tools and fun, but to make sure that we're actually driving, the right audience and really driving revenue for the business.
What I find to be fascinating, and I know we're getting in the weeds, but I am curious because when one person doesn't own both, in some organizations they own both. If one owns MQL, one team, and another one SQL, there has to be almost an element of trust, loss of control. In one respect, when you just get the MQL, here you go. If it may not get to the SQL, it may drop in between while we did our job. The sale says, wait a second, you didn't do yours. I never had a conversation. Your case, you're shifting, where now you're saying, I am going to only recognize a win when you get on a phone call, which is up to you now to pursue if there are reschedules and all kinds of drop-offs happen. So I don't know if there's any additional light you can shed on how that decision was made.
Totally. I knew that this would uncover problems. So we switched to SQLs and we missed our targets, right? Nobody likes to brag about that. But for me, it is a bit of a point of pride because it's like I'm shining light on where there is a business problem. One of the first things I did was branding is important. Most of us are marketing people. We know how important branding is, but this isn't just about company level branding, right? We can get down into the details where branding matters. And I insisted, instead of calling it the marketing to sales handoff, it's the marketing to sales handshake. And everything about this is building a closer relationship between the marketing and sales teams. So many organizations, they're just butting heads. It's not working, causes all kinds of problems. Also, measuring the wrong things can cause those problems. So I think measuring the right things and then just deliberately going out to foster that relationship between marketing and sales is really crucial. So
Not a
the
handoff, but a handshake.
that's
That's
right. The sales and marketing handshake. And I've no patent or trademark on that. Everyone can go out and use it. And it really worked. So we started looking at, all right, our MQLs we're still measuring them, right? We're still looking at that chart every day. It's not our goal, but we're still looking at it. So when I noticed that MQLs are still going up and to the right, and SQLs are flat or certainly like barely up, this is when we start to dig into the problems. And it would have been so easy for us to say, well, we're doing our job. We've got our MQLs. We're fine. It's your problem. That's not good for the whole business, for the whole company. So now you've got both teams digging in to see, all right, what's happening? Are we disqualifying these, or are we, how are we marking the people who no show? Are people coming in from particular sources, the ones that are most of the problem? And we start to uncover and dig in to find out where are the sources of the problems, where are people getting dropped. Is it is it a process issue? Is it a sourcing issue? And so that's an ongoing battle that we fixed some things, we got things better, but there's always room to improve.
always. I have not met anyone who said it's over. We've reached the destination. We're now perfect.
That's
But
right.
as you're discovering these issues, are you seeing them kind of top funnel, mid funnel? Like where are you seeing I guess it wouldn't be top funnel because you're moving from MQL to SQL.
Right. Well, but you don't want to stay with an assumption there. So you're right. It wasn't the top of the funnel problem. We have great traffic. Our traffic's growing, between 10 and 20, organic traffic's growing between 10 and 20% month over month. That's awesome. Our conversion rates are pretty good from the top to the middle of the funnel. Like I said, we're hitting our MQL goals, but it's really that bottom of the funnel piece where things were running into issues. So for a while, we had it that if somebody no showed their appointment, we had automation in place, to try to email and try to get them back. But that lead, or sorry, the MQL was getting disqualified, and there, which was like it's a data problem and a data inaccuracy. And so we had to go through, fix the ops side, retrain the SDRs, get everybody on board with what new things should be. And now no show is not a disqualification, but it is a status that an MQL can get to. So we know how to properly message those people. We can quantify, oh, okay, if 45 people no showed last month, how many of those can we reactivate? Versus if they're in this disqualified bucket, they don't have budget, they don't have intent. No show is not a reason to disqualify. So digging into those details really matters, and we had to work closely with our ops team to and the sales team to make sure that we are making changes in the way that we measure things to make sure that we're getting to the root of the problems.
And as you're getting as you said, to the root of the problems, and you're thinking about how to improve, you and I started chatting about AI, and what conversation doesn't in 2024 touch AI? I guess at some point it will stop because it'll be assumed that, you know, I don't know, maybe years away. But Matthew, how are you thinking about this moving the goal from MQL to an SQL? discovering these challenges and the technology as part of the solution. Where does your mind go?
So there's a couple different places, right? So one is we are a product company that uses AI. So we are pitching AI. So there's AI as a narrative, AI as a top of the funnel piece that people will address with. And then there's how are we using it internally? One of the things that we did find relatively early on our AI content, we were getting people who would sign up and they might be a law professor at a university, zero buyer's intent, but they're really curious to talk to us and get a demo and see what we're doing. So we had to take some of them and some other leads that were, either too small for us. And we actually created a group demo where once a month we have a group demo that we set up and we send those, or twice a month, sorry, we send those people over to there. So, saving AE time is really important. And it's hard to get marketers to understand unless they've worked across broad organizations. It's hard to get them to understand why saving AE time is critical. So from the top of the funnel perspective, we did have like a little bit of a AI messaging challenge because we were attracting people that weren't going to buy, and that's fine. It's good to get attention, but had to save AE time. On the using AI side, we're definitely using it. In fact, I've caught some people using AI, using ChatGPT or whatever during interviews. And I have mixed feelings about that because it's certainly something they will be able to use once they come on board. But I want to make sure
Mhm.
that they actually know the stuff that they're talking about beforehand. I'm contemplating doing like an open book exam, an open AI interview process. But then there's
Hmm.
also so we've all got our team all has ChatGPT Pro and a handful of other tools. We're using some video creation tools and things along those lines. But you got to go from the individual level up to the team level. That's the next stage of AI evolution.
Totally.
Yes, and there's tools that I want to build. There's tools that I'm experimenting with. Um, was there a particular direction you think that your listeners might be
Yeah.
curious in?
So you just touched on, as you know, that's a passion of mine. We're also building, experimenting, collaborating. I'm almost crowdsourcing now. What do we want as leaders, as practitioners in the world of marketing? And more specifically, I'm very curious about B2B because B2B has gravity that's slightly different. You could make an argument many similarities, and there are many differences. So when you think about, I mean, you just nailed it perfectly. You said we got to move from the co-pilot using it individually to what's next. So let's talk about it. What do we think is next? Let's talk about it in broad strokes first, and then let's begin to make our way to what I suspect is inevitable conversation, which is workflows, automations. How are we going to do that with context of teams? And teams may even be cross-functional in nature that need to touch this process. Are
Absolutely.
you tracking with me?
Oh yeah, for sure. So the first thing I'll do is I'll start by saying where we're not using Gen AI. We're
Mhm.
not using it to do any of our writing. We're not having it create blog posts for us or ebooks for us. Um, our audience, SpotDraft sells software for lawyers and house counsel that deal with lots of contracts. Lawyers, our persona is hyper literate, and they read every word, so they will know if something is easily spat out by an AI engine. So we don't want that. Now, places where we are using it is, as a research assistant for ideation. These are the things where AI at a pretty basic level is working really well right now. I can go ask it to create 10 headlines and then 10 more and 10 more and 100 more. And it's never going to, tell me to go away or tell me that it's sick of it or get bored or tired. Um, but the other thing that AI is really good for beyond ideation is processing large amounts of data and extracting really important pieces from that. So a simple, relatively simple, I say simple, example of how we could use this is, let's say we're doing outreach emails and we might say, hey, did you know your competitor is using, might be using this, or how could you do contracting better than your competitors? And if you just use that as a subject line, it's okay. It's relatively compelling. But what if you use an AI agent to go out and fetch a company's top three competitors and drop that into a custom field? And then when you go to send an automated email, you're pulling in those properties and dropping it into a subject line or into the first paragraph. And now you can say, are you contracting better than competitors A, B, and C? You've
Hmm.
just created this one-to-one personal experience that is hyper relevant, names that are going to grab their attention. The only because competitors' names, you always want to know what's going on with them, and even lawyers know who their company's top competitors are usually. And so that's an idea of how we can use information that's being gathered by AI at scale to enable automation, and then the rest of the body is still largely written by a person, right? We're not having it kick out the entire same email. I still believe that humans can uh, write better than AI can right now, in terms of being concise, pointed, really really to the point. So that's a small scale idea of some of the things that I want to do. A larger scale project that we've got in the works is harnessing AI's capability to, again, look at massive amounts of data at scale, extract things, and then do something with that data. So I've got a project that I'm working on where we're going to take all of our public facing documentation, help site, blog, downloadables, templates, everything that's out there that's written. And then we're going to take all of our recorded sales calls, discovery calls, closing calls, onboarding calls, uh, support chats and support calls, and say, give me, from all these questions and these interactions that we're having with prospects and customers, get me a full list organized of all of the questions they're asking. And then go and look at everything that we've already written and the material that's all available to them, and tell me which of these questions are answered and which are the ones that aren't yet answered. And that's going to be our content ideas for the next 12 to 18 months.
I mean, it's brilliant. You're literally looking at your customer experience in across all of your touch points, evaluating what you give them, what they give you, what they see, all aspects, finding the deficits, and then filling it in. That's your content roadmap. Fascinating.
Thanks. Yeah, and we're going to use our customers' own questions, their own language, which is uh, the best thing that a marketing writer can aspire to.
And then I would imagine you can then think about the customer journey, figure out when that content is best, in what channel, whether it's targeting, retargeting, email, post conversation follow up, where should that content live, what kind of content, videos, blogs, and have you. And yeah, I'm just fascinated. But it also, like a year, 2 years ago, if you would have said this is what you're thinking about, my reaction would have been like, good luck. Like, like
Yeah,
what kind of team do you need to manage that kind of research? Or are you going to go to like a academic institution with that kind of volume of work? Now it's like, hold up, well, quite like literally, what are the steps involved? Because it is possible.
absolutely. Yeah, we've these tools, while they're complicated, no one's gone out and productized this yet. But the data is accessible. It's if you know how to hack together different programs and make them talk to each other nicely and store data properly, these are all, you don't need a team of researchers anymore. You can literally go out and do this with off the shelf parts cobbled together.
Matthew, you and I briefly talked about AI agents, right? And really, I've heard so many definitions too of agents. Like, what is an agent? Some folks think custom ChatGPT is an agent. Others are like, whoa, 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 that's too simple. An agent is autonomous. It has the ability to reason. It has access to tools. I look at it as a call it sophisticated workflow. It's just to keep it simple for myself. So my question to you is, when you think about an idea like this, how does that tie to what you see as upcoming technology and capabilities of AI agents?
Yeah, so I think that an agent is, I mean, a lot of people have described AI as like a really, really smart intern. And I
Hmm.
think that an AI agent, could also be thought of as a really, really smart research intern with a job description. So it's not just the generic solve everything, one shot interface with ChatGPT, but now it's trained to solve a particular problem, probably on a specific data set. There's probably a middle layer of some prompt engineering that's gone into it so that your inputs don't have to have repeat all the full context and repeat all the job descriptions and everything that you're asking for. A lot of that has been taken care of, so it can take a one-shot answer and give it the right level of feedback, um, especially when you're talking about structured data. HubSpot is building a bunch of AI agents right now. I think they're going to be announcing them in about a month, so hopefully I'm not leaking anything there. Dharmesh has tweeted about a couple things, but those agents have specific tasks. So it could be anything from like a customer or a company research agent, where you go and say, hey, here's the name of the company, and it returns a whole bunch of structured data. Or it could be a meme generator where say you put in your line of what you want the meme to be, and it comes back and generates that. And I've seen varying levels of success. The meme generator, probably 20-30% hit rate on something I would either consider using, or at the very least consider inspiration for. But the company research agent, where it's returning top competitors, founders, etc. That stuff is usable almost straight away. But yeah, I think of the agents as being actually, yeah, the really, really smart intern with a job description. So they're still not quite ready to like be production facing, but they're a lot closer than they were 12, 18 months ago.
What I like about that is you wouldn't expect an intern with a job description to do five different jobs. It's a very specific job description. And I think what really works well in that analogy is what I'm finding as best practices for having AI agents with very particular guardrails. Because the more open you create in terms of guardrails, the more susceptible they are to hallucinations, inaccuracies. Harnessing it is very difficult, very similar to having an intern. Like, hey, you're an intern in marketing, sales, operations, and you're also going to be answering the phones. Good luck figuring out performance, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, using the right tool for the right job is critical. And just because these things are much more capable than they were a couple of years ago, doesn't mean they are all ready for those like sort of zero shot solutions yet. But we're getting a heck of a lot closer.
There are two places where I'd like to go next because for many of the listeners, they're marketing and they're all looking at AI. I think either they're already sprinting forward, or I just was on the phone call this morning for someone who's going to be on the air, where he just honestly said, "Listen, I'm scared of the thing, but I know it's unavoidable. What do I do?" So there are two places where I like to go. Is first, I want to talk about like I think every leader should start to get their hands dirty. They need to themselves begin to play with it because this isn't. It's almost like I've never used Google Excel. I've never used the internet. You can't be in a position to say that and ask others. It's no longer a This is a main tool into our futures. That's the first place I want to talk about your take. And then I will spend the rest of our time wondering what is going to take place as we think about these AI agents. Well, pick a time frame. 1, 2 years, 3 years. I can't think beyond 3 years. At this point, I have decided I can't go with this rate of technology. So Matthew, let's talk about, do we ask every leader to roll up their sleeves and go and experiment?
I think that leaders should be driven by the curiosity to want to do that themselves. I think it's very easy for some people, they can come in and they have their playbook and they've done this at multiple companies and it works, and they run their same playbook and they go home and turn on the TV and they're fine with that. But I think if you're in a fast moving industry or space, or you want to continue to evolve yourself, then you need to be out there and trying out new products. Now, marketers, we are driven to look for the new channels, the new tools, new marketing techniques, new memes, new trending topics, you name it. And this is what's new. So, some people are concerned, obviously a certain portion of the population is always going to be non-early adopters, a little more wary, a little more skeptical, and and that's fine. But eventually, you're going to want to get on board. I don't think, especially in marketing to some degree, I don't really think that AI is going to replace marketers. I think marketers with AI are going to replace marketers without AI. Just
For
like,
sure.
yeah, just like an accountant with a calculator replaced an account, or Excel replaced an accountant with slide rules. Maybe slide rules are more engineering. I don't know. Not an accountant or an engineer. But that's I think where we're going is you're just like we have Google to get our answers. Now we've got AI to do some thinking or ideation or research or whatever it might be. Um, and it's just going to become a commonplace part of our job. So that's my thought in terms of like, are we going to be replaced? Um, the next part is, where is this going
Yeah.
in 1 to 2 years? I'm not a futurist. I sure can't see 10 years from now. But I think within a couple of years, we are going to start to see real, return on investment for these projects, right? Um, all of the top big tech companies are working out how to get it into place. We at SpotDraft are using AI in particular places along the contract lifecycle. And there's places where it's applicable and good, and places where it's not. And again, if we sort of take it back to a first principles thought here, when we're talking about AI right now, we're mostly talking about large language models, which
Hmm.
are, it's a statistical model based on words and definitions and vectors and those sorts of things. And with these statistical models, you have an element of randomness. So places where I tell our prospects and customers, places where you don't want to use AI is in something like contract creation, right? We don't want to say, all right, give this set of principles and go write me a contract. Lawyers want super tight control over every word in their contract. And you don't want an element of randomness. You definitely don't want hallucinations there. But how could we flip that around and use AI in this case? Well, we could say, here's an existing contract, build me a template from this. So it's like, okay, well, I know to take out a company name and put in, a token or a counterparty name. I know how to make a date, like remove a date field and put in a blank for the date field, and you can build a template off of this where you can then have a perfect replication of that contract every time. And instead of going through and manually making changes to build your template, AI is doing that for you. What are some other ways you could do that? We've talked about hallucinations. What if we reimagined hallucinations as a feature instead of a bug? Now, instead of, oh, well, it makes up facts. Well, what if you wanted it to explore hypothetical scenarios? This works really well for writing titles or headlines or coming up with taglines that you can use as inspiration or possibly take. Um, but it could also be, how could this go wrong? How could, whether it's a transaction, come up, meet opposition? Think of 10 ways where this thing might go wrong or go well.
Mm.
And now you can use it for planning. So you can also think of, I think AI is going to do some actual risk, like forward-looking risk analysis for us, where its hallucinations become a feature, not a bug, because you're asking it to be extraordinarily creative.
Fascinating. Fascinating, Matthew. I'd love to keep going with you, I think, for a couple more hours. I think you're on the bleeding edge, both in how you're thinking about where it's headed, as well as how you're practicing it today. But I'll just maybe leave our audience with one piece of advice that you would give, because with, I can only imagine, maybe similar to me, it does feel like there's a lot for us to absorb. There's a lot to take in, to distill, and to figure out what to do with it, and to lead our teams and the organizations. But what advice would you give to leaders that are feeling the strain of this accelerating pace of change?
Totally. I mean, I'm actually going to tie it back into the topic around goals. If you are trying to figure out how you can use AI or how you could possibly work it into, your daily work, especially if you're facing opposition or skepticism, um, don't think oh, I have to go figure out how to use this. Think about what are the problems you're facing? What are the challenges that you have? And then similar to like going changing your goals from MQLs to SQLs, I had to uncover the problem of why our conversion rate wasn't there and get more people solving it. Now you can look at these tools as an option of here's a problem that I've got. Is this a good application for AI? And once you have that goal in mind, engage your curiosity and start thinking creatively, look at what other people are doing, and figure out how you can turn a tool into a solution. But if you just start thinking, total blue sky, oh, how can I use this tool? It is very easy to be overwhelmed because the pace of change is just so rapid. But think about something, a challenge that you're facing, a goal you have, or a problem you have, and then think about how could I go use new tools or see what else is out there to go solve that.
Engage your curiosity while focused on your goals. Matthew, brilliant. Thank you for your time and for sharing with us all that you're learning.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Adam.
Over now.
Have a good one.